Hello everyone, it's me Fathima Hudha Bedi. Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to talk about or we're going to discuss the different types of crying. Because we all cry. I mean, there's always been a time in our lives when we cry. And for every type of crying, there's a particular term that you have to use. So I really hope this video turns out to be extremely useful and I hope this helps you enhance your vocabulary. Now, the first type of crying is bawling. Bawling is a term that you can use when somebody is crying so much, so loudly and with so much of pain. You can say they were bawling. So, I was bawling my eyes out after what has happened. So, bawling is an extreme sort of crying where you're crying with a lot of pain and you're making a lot of noise and it's a loud way of crying. Then comes the second one, which is weeping. Weeping is not too loud, but your tears are like constantly rolling down. So you're crying, you're like, those tears coming out of your eyes so much, and then you're really sad, but not making a lot of sound. And that is when you say somebody was weeping. Then comes sobbing. Sobbing is again a loud way of crying, but then with you won't be able to catch your breath when you're crying because you're crying so much, and then you take those convulsive gasps. So that is when you say you're sobbing. So kind of like that sort of a sound that comes when you cry a lot. That is when you say somebody was sobbing. The fourth one is screaming. Screaming is of course something that you might be already knowing when somebody is again very loud when they're crying, and that is when they say out of pain or grief or anger. That is when you say somebody was screaming. Now there's another word that is quite similar to screaming, which is screeching. Screeching is something that is similar to screaming, but there's a small difference which I'll be explaining. So screeching is also a loud way to cry, but then you'll be making piercing sounds. When you're crying, that is something that kids tend to do. So when kids are screaming, they'll be making that piercing sound, and that is when you say somebody was screeching. And the main difference that you have to understand between screaming and screeching is that when you're saying or when you're describing somebody crying, especially when you're sympathetic towards that person, then you're supposed to use the word screaming and not screeching. Because screeching is used when you're annoyed by the way they cry. And if you're feeling sympathy or empathy for the person who cried and who's been screaming, then you're supposed to use the word screaming. Like, she was screaming out of pain. But you're not supposed to say she's screeching out of pain, So if you're not feeling empathy or sympathy, and if you're annoyed by the way they were screaming, then you can say that kid was screeching from the supermarket because he didn't get the chocolate he wanted. All right, so that is screeching. The next word is wailing. Wailing is also a sort of cry when you're crying with pain, grief or anger again. So wailing is just another very simple synonym for the word cry, not anything particular as such. The last one is whimper. Whimper or somebody, it's the sound that dogs tend to make, and when a person cries and then they do like, that sort of thing, something like sobbing, that vibrating sound that comes when you're like too sad, that is whimpering. All right, so that is the last way that we'll be discussing in this video in order to describe someone crying. So I hope this video was helpful. I'll just summarize the words that I just said right now. The first one was bawling, then we talked about weeping, sobbing, screaming, screeching, wailing and whimpering. I really hope this video was helpful, and if you want to know more about the courses that we provide at English House, including our IELTS coaching and our communicative English classes, then you can definitely go ahead and click on the link below. Thank you so much for watching.
English House. English at your fingertips.